Hi everyone, today we're talking about how to document your PPP loan. I know that many of you have been asking, hey, I got this money, do I need a separate bank account? What do I do? It's not income, how do I document it? What do I do with this PPP money? How do I record it so that I can make sure that it gets forgiven? So we're going to cover that today, and I'm talking about two different camps because we have the people who have full accounting systems and they even have potentially accounting staff to take care of this kind of stuff. And then you have the little guys who maybe are just considering themselves independent contractors, or they are independent contractors and they're just kind of gigging on the side. They're doing little small jobs. They don't really consider themselves a business. And these guys, they might not even have a separate business account, and that's okay. So what we want to talk about them too, okay? So we've got kind of a spectrum of different things, and I'm going to make two different recommendations for two different groups, all right? Thank you for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. So I'm going to start with the little guys first. A lot of smaller businesses and even independent contractors, like I mentioned, they may not have their own accounting system. They might not even have their own business bank account yet. So what I want them to do is I want them to take this PPP money and go ahead and put it in a separate bank account. All right, if you don't have any other way that you're tracking your business finances, this is the simplest way to separate it out of your personal and put it into a separate bank account so that you can see as the items are getting moved out of your account and you're using the money for the allowable costs, that you can see it all there directly in the bank transactions. And then at the end of your covered period, you can pull bank statements and it'll make it nice and clean and easy. So you still might maybe pay something out of your personal account. So let's just say that you had utility payment like a internet, and that was coming out of your personal account, although it was for business for your independent contractor role. What you would do is you would continue to pay that out of the personal account, but what you would do is you would transfer some money over from your new business account in that exact amount of that bill over to your personal account. Okay, so you're going to see that amount, maybe let's just say it's $80.45. So you will see that $80.45 payment is going out of your personal account, and then you'll go over to your business account and then move over $80.45 to sort of replace your personal account because it paid out, and then you're going to move the business money over back into your personal to reimburse your personal, okay? That is the main time that I'm going to recommend that businesses put this money into a separate account. Now, lots of banks have just been saying, yeah, open up a separate account and put the money in there and it's fine. And it is fine. You can do that. Like every single person can do that and go ahead and put the PPP money into a separate business bank account. Everybody's welcome to do that. Definitely recommend it for the independent contractors and the people who don't have a business account otherwise. They need to do that. That is really, you need to do that, okay? But now let's talk about the other businesses. Let's talk about the businesses that have an accounting system. Let's talk about the businesses that might have other resources at their disposal. And maybe having another business bank account becomes like maybe more complicated, and maybe it just doesn't make sense at all for them to do that. And it might be a situation that you already have multiple bank accounts and you have a system of how you use each one. If that's the case, then it might make more sense for you to put the money into your operating account and then just document all of your expenses on a separate Excel spreadsheet. Go ahead and pay your payroll out of the normal account that you've always paid your payroll. Go ahead and pay rent with the same checks you always do. Go ahead and keep your utilities on auto pay. Because what I don't want happening, and this is what I'm a little bit worried about, is people moving the money into a separate bank account and then changing all their auto pay, changing the direct deposit account numbers to where that, kind of temporary account for the PPP money becomes like all of a sudden having all these auto drafts out of it. And then what happens when that money is gone? And what if you forget? And then you're going to start to have auto draft fees, and it can just be a big nightmare, and it can cause a lot of administrative harm by setting up a whole new account and trying to change the way you've done everything for such a short amount of time. We're talking about 8 weeks here. We're not talking about tons of time. So I don't want you changing your whole accounting process just to fit into, accounting out of this bank balance. It just doesn't make sense, okay? So what I want you to try instead, and I think this is working, what I'm seeing with my clients, and I think that it works pretty well, is to go ahead and just put the money in the account that makes the most sense for you. And remember, I'm talking about the bigger companies. I'm talking about the ones that have their own accounting system. So put the money in whatever account it makes the most sense. Go ahead and set up a liability account, a long-term liability account. So you'll go into your accounting system, you'll go to your chart of accounts, you will add new, and you will go and you will find liabilities, long-term liabilities, probably something like a notes payable, and you will set up a new account and you will label it PPP loan, and you will put it on your balance sheet. And then when that money comes in, you code that money to the PPP loan, that account that you just created. So then you'll be able to pull up your balance sheet and you'll see that full amount of the PPP loan sitting on your balance sheet. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna have all these expenses that you know that you can potentially get forgiven. So you're gonna track those expenses in a separate Excel spreadsheet. And you're gonna, because we already have the budgeting plan, right? We know that we're gonna be budgeting for this money. So we kind of know what expenses we need to watch out for. So we know we need to watch out for payroll. We know we need to watch out for rent and utilities and interest on mortgages. So for all of those things, we are going to keep them tracked in a separate Excel spreadsheet, because that's the other thing. I want you to keep your expenses in your P&L, because I need you to be looking at your P&L on a monthly basis. And if we remove 100% of payroll, and what if payroll is 80% of all of your expenses, it's going to make your months look really weird, and you're not going to have a very good comparative P&L month over month over month over month. And that doesn't help you to operate your business well. So I want you to leave the expenses in the P&L. And then you've got the separate Excel spreadsheet that you're tracking over here on the side. And it's going to say, I mean, you're just going to have like payroll, and you're going to say payroll run on this date, payroll run on this date, payroll run on this date. And then you're going to have a column that says how much is forgivable on each one of those. And then I want you to have a reference column. And this is where I get really nerdy in the documentation, okay? I want you to have a reference column on the far side. And it's going to say, you want to have it labeled. So you can have, I mean, like if it's a payroll run, you could do P1. P1 goes to your file. You'll rename your file in your documentation folder to match that reference number. Make up whatever reference numbers you want. What I want is that every single line item has at least one piece of documentation, okay? Electronic documentation, that when it comes to time to get all of this documentation together to go and ask for forgiveness from the bank, you have it all saved in a file, you have it listed on an Excel spreadsheet, you have your loan there on the balance sheet, and you're good to go. Your accounting system looks great. And then once the bank determines how much is forgivable, they will report back to you. And then at that point in time, you can determine, do I want to keep all of my expenses in my P&L for now? Or do I want to make the forgiveness adjustment? Do I want to make that at the end of the year? Okay. And move all those expenses out, so that it will reduce your expenses, which will increase your profit for the year, which will essentially make those forgivable items taxable, okay? You can watch the taxable video if you're confused about that one, okay? Because I explained that pretty well in that video. I think I've covered everything on the documentation side. All right, just to recap. For businesses that do not have a business bank account, now is a great time to start one. For businesses that have an accounting system, make sure you put that liability on the balance sheet and keep all of your expenses tracked normally. Please, please, please do not change your process of paying your bills. You will not be happy when you have to go and change it all back. That is an administrative nightmare, and something will get missed. So just don't mess with that. You're not going to want to do that. And then decide how you want to track your P&L, or once you get the forgiveness, are you going to want to wipe it all clean once you know, and clean all those expenses to clean out your liability, which you would essentially take all of those expenses that were forgivable, and then you would reduce them out of your expense accounts and then offset them with your liability account. So then at the end of the day, whatever's left in the liability will just be the actual remaining portion of your loan. After you get whatever forgiven, there might be a tiny portion that still is a loan, and that will basically net out to the correct amount. Also, for the people who have gotten the EIDL grant and the PPP loan, those two things offset. So what I have been recommending to people is you can do this either two ways. You can put both things, both dollars that come in, you can put them both into the same liability account because ultimately they're going to be netted together anyway. Or you can put them in two separate liability accounts and they can just be sitting right next to each other on the balance sheet. So that's your options there. Accounting for this is going to be part of your documentation. So take this seriously. Make sure you do not commingle personal expenses with business expenses because that is going to get you in trouble. And you might not be able to get your money forgiven that you thought you were going to because maybe you spent it on something you shouldn't have. So we want to make sure that we're properly documenting this money and properly segregating it so that we can get these loans forgiven. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. All right. Bye.